As I promised on Friday, I want to firstly thank Brett Walker for the very comprehensive report into the Ruby Princess. When I asked him to undertake this piece of work on behalf of the New South Wales Government, I asked him to be direct and frank, leave no stone unturned, and to make sure he felt he'd covered all the issues he needed to cover. And I want to thank him and his team for providing this comprehensive report, which I can confirm I read in full over the weekend. Can I now apologise unreservedly to anybody who suffered as a result of the mistakes that were outlined in the report undertaken by individuals within the Health Department or the Health Agency? And I extend that apology unreservedly, in particular to the 62 people who got the virus in secondary or tertiary way, those 62 people who weren't on the ship but somehow contracted the virus as a consequence of that disembarkation. And I want to say I can't imagine what it would be like having a loved one or being someone yourself who continues to suffer and experience trauma as a result. And I want to apologise unreservedly to anybody who is continuing to suffer or has suffered unimaginable loss because of mistakes that were made within our health agencies. Fortunately, Mr Walker says, and I want to stress, that there weren't systemic issues. He has full confidence in those agencies continuing to work on the pandemic, and I think we can say that since that time we have learned a lot. We have learned so much since those horrible mistakes. And as the Premier, again, I want to apologise to anybody, especially those 62 individuals who got the virus as a secondary or tertiary contact because of the way in which those passengers disembarked the ship, and to anybody who continues to suffer loss and trauma and angst and health concerns as a result of those mistakes. I also want to thank and commend Commissioner Fuller. Mr Walker acknowledges the work that Commissioner Fuller had already done, which was passed on to Mr Walker, and Mr Walker was able to use that information in compiling his report. And again, I say not only have lessons been learned, but clearly those circumstances should and will never happen again in New South Wales because of the lessons learned, and also because subsequent to those mistakes and subsequent to the way in which that issue was handled, New South Wales prevented, I think, up to 13 or 14 other cruise ships from docking in Sydney. So the lessons were learned very quickly, but unfortunately, in particular for those 62 individuals, the lessons weren't learned soon enough. And again, I apologise unreservedly on behalf of all those individuals and agencies who made those mistakes. In relation to the coronavirus more broadly, last week we did talk about the potential for health to issue clearer guidelines around schools, and I can confirm that at 10 o'clock this morning, and Dr Chant will mention this, that health did provide some further specific guidelines to remove any ambiguity which may exist on what schools should and should not be doing. And I apologise in advance to parents and school communities if this causes them further restrictions, but it is to maintain ongoing safety, and it is to maintain our ability to have less disruption as possible for parents, children and teachers and principals. And I think all parents who've had to endure months of homeschooling would appreciate our efforts to continue lack of disruption when it comes to face-to-face teaching. And I also wanted to extend in particular my thoughts to Year 11 and 12 students. I have had reports about extra cases of mental health and challenges for people who are sitting the HSC and sitting those final years of schooling, and please know we're doing everything we can to lessen the burden and to support you during this time. I'll now ask Dr Chant to give her update. I'll ask Minister Hazzard to make some comments, Commissioner Fuller to make some comments, but also to provide an update on the compliance regime to date. And again, I want to commend police, because from day one we knew we'd only be able to manage this pandemic with police front and centre of our ability to manage the logistics, compliance, even to the extent of ensuring that PPE we received was able to be received because of their supreme logistical capacities through the New South Wales Police Force. And I remain extremely grateful for their efforts and commend them for their actions to date.